Yesterday, President Biden was in Selma, Alabama, once again pushing for a federal takeover of elections, saying he would stop at nothing.
I made it clear. I will not let a filibuster obstruct the sacred right to vote, the right of any other right to vote from there.
Interestingly, President Biden pointed to the election reform efforts that have taken place in nearly 24 states over the last 2.5 years as evidence the right to vote is under attack. Really? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is J. Christian Adams, president of the Public Interest Legal Foundation. J. Christian Adams, welcome to Washington Watch.
Hi, Tony.
All right, so the president's not letting go of this narrative that the states that are working to restore integrity to our election system are actually taking people's right to vote away.
Yeah, this record has been skipping and playing on repeat for the last 15 years or so, ever since Georgia voter ID in 2005 when I was at the Justice Department. And all it is, Tony, is a attempt to stoke up their base, to give them a reason to vote, to make people like President Biden more, who currently polls show his support among black voters is pretty bad. It's almost 60%, which is unheard of for a Democrat president. It's never been easier to register. It's never been easier to vote than it is in 2023. So this is a case of just deceiving people, frankly.
But it is getting harder to cheat, is it not?
Well, in some ways it's getting harder because states are cracking down, but in other ways it's getting easier because states like Nevada and others are doing automatic mail-outs to people who don't even request ballots. So I guess it all depends on where you are. Some places it's harder to cheat. Other places like California and Nevada, it's actually getting easier.
But if President Biden and the Democrats had their way with their so-called election reforms efforts, it would be easy to cheat everywhere.
Yeah, because it would federalize the rules. That's one of the great things about America is every state gets to decide how to run their elections. It's part of the founders' brilliant design for the country to give states power over the election, not give a centralized authority, because they saw how that worked out with kings, and it doesn't work so good. They wanted power to be decentralized.
You now have a interactive tool on a database that you created that will help citizens in the various states ensure that election abuses are addressed. Tell us about it.
Well, this has been a multi-year project. We, years ago, started out by building a database. Remember, President Trump actually appointed me to the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity. And one of the things we were going to do is get all the voter rolls from around the country and amalgamate them, glue them together, so we could see who was registered in multiple states, who had died, who had voted more than once. Well, that got blown up when the left sued us. So what the Public Interest Legal Foundation did is we went out and did it ourselves. And so this interactive map is one of the end products of having this database where we can see who's registered in multiple states, who's registered multiple times. A lot of folks have tried this, but I don't think they've put the kind of money into it that we did to get it right. That's the key, is you have to get it right. In some states, there's blind spots, like Wisconsin. You can't get full dates of birth in Wisconsin from the voter roll, so you can't figure out who's really who, and you get a lot of false positives. But in the places we did have the data, we did a good job.
So you have found more than 317,000 deceased registrants on the voter rolls, more than almost 459,000 interstate duplicates. What do you hope will come from this? What can be done with it?
Well, one of the things that can be done is we're suing Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, who refused to act on this information when we got it. We sent it to her, we drove it to her, we mailed it to her, we emailed it to her, we visited, or at least tried to visit with her about it, and she didn't do anything. So under the Motor Voter Law, the National Voter Registration Act, Public Interest Legal Foundation is suing the Secretary of State of Michigan for having 25,000 registrants active on the rolls and just not doing anything about it. So we use this database to actually develop litigation.
How can folks access this, and what can they do with it practically to help in this effort that you're undertaking to make sure that our elections are free and they're fair and they have integrity?
Well, you can look at your state at publicinterestlegal.org. That's publicinterestlegal.org. There's a interactive screen there. that you can look at your state, unless, of course, it's one of the states like Wisconsin that don't have full dates of birth. So, there's tools available for you to see what, in fact, is going on in your backyard.
Let me go to the bigger issue that we were talking about just a moment ago with President Biden criticizing these states that have been taking on election integrity measures, mostly almost totally in red states that have been advancing this. Are we better off in 2023 as we go into 2024 than we were in 2020 as it pertains to the integrity of our election system?
Well, once again, that's a mixed bag. In places like Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, the 21 other states or so that banned private payoffs to election officials, we are better off in those states. Unfortunately, places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, we are not better off. In fact, in Michigan, we're much worse off. I would probably say the same thing about Wisconsin. So in some states, it's gotten better, and in some states, it's gotten worse.
So a lot of work still to be done, but a part of it is the blue states where you have those like Joe Biden from his party that really don't want the system to be easy to vote but hard to cheat.
Or even follow the law. You mentioned President Biden's home state of Delaware. The Public Interest Legal Foundation had to bring a lawsuit last year because they had automatic vote by mail and they had same-day voter registration, both of which violated the Delaware Constitution. So we had to bring a lawsuit. We won in the Delaware Supreme Court and had those two unconstitutional election practices struck down. And so that's one of the big challenges, Tony, going forward, is to enforce the rule of law.
Yeah.
That's an important binding force in this nation. And when states don't follow their own laws, it only creates more division and doubt about the elections.
We don't have a republic without the enforcement of the law. And we're seeing this lawlessness on our streets. We're seeing it in our courtrooms. We're seeing it in the halls of government. It's alarming. But we have tools like this to use, and we all have to use our voice, and we have to be involved in the process. J. Christian Adams, always great to see you. Thanks for the great work that you guys do.
Thanks a lot, Tony.
All right, good to see you.